So I'm gonna make the start here. The title, or the first part, is going to be sort of to give you an overview of the programs that are out there and to show you the diversity of liberal arts programs in Europe. So, originally inspired by the ancient educational tradition of artes liberales, and for a long time nowadays almost exclusively at least associated with the US-American college system, a modern, original and diverse development of liberal arts education has been emerging at various universities in Europe for almost 3 decades now. As Daniel has mentioned, they are established and accredited as mostly as undergraduate Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Sciences programs. They do not only call for new modes of studying, but they challenge the purpose of the future university and undergraduate education. Nowadays, most university bachelor degrees follow disciplinary pathways. These liberal arts programs invite students to design their own individual curricula that reach across disciplines and avoid an early specialization. Daniel has also mentioned that. They often raise the claim to offer a contemporary alternative to traditional monodisciplinary pathways. Now, despite this claim to be an alternative, and despite the passage of time of almost 3 decades, it's not immediately clear what somebody means when they refer to liberal arts in the European context, and probably most of you are not too familiar with the concept. The reasons for that are almost as diverse as the liberal arts programs themselves. Quite obviously, they are not that widely known outside of those people who are involved of running these programs. They are in some places far more developed than in other places. There's little research on them, and there's also, what I've mentioned before, quite a great diversity among liberal arts programs, which might be hard to grasp when looking at this landscape of programs for the very first time. So, until recently, when people try to get an overview of this topic of liberal arts programs, people were very likely to get to come across at least 3 lists. There was in 2011 a research article by Marek van der Wende. She was the founding dean of the Amsterdam University College, and she wrote about liberal arts in Europe, and she presented a list of, I think, 30 institutions that would offer a liberal arts degree. Then there is ECOLAS. It spells out as the Consortium of European Colleges of Liberal Arts and Sciences. They are a non-governmental educational consulting group, as you can find out on the website, and they offer a list of 37 liberal arts institutions in Europe. And finally, in 2013, Kara Goodwin, who's a recent PhD from Boston College in the United States, tried to map out liberal arts globally, tried to map out all the liberal arts initiative, and she counted 57 programs in Europe and 183 globally. Now, not only differ these lists in what they include as liberal arts, you saw the different numbers, they differ in the criteria, or the lack thereof, of inclusion, and they are not regularly updated. Furthermore, those lists, or these articles that I mentioned, seem to suggest that apart from the sort of basic institutional settings that you will find, that some places are public, other places are privately run, that apart from these basic institutional settings, that liberal arts in Europe is something that might be a movement united in a rational, or united in the same purpose, which is an assumption that from my findings and all of our findings needs to be at least challenged, I would say. And this is also the reason why Daniel and I, who were both doing separate PhDs on liberal arts, when we came together and we sort of were aware that we both of us needed a recent list and database of programs, so we thought, hey, let's do it ourselves. And this is how sort of this thing that we now call the European Liberal Arts Initiative came into being, which I'm going to present to you now with its most prominent feature, which is a database on liberal arts programs. So what we did there was, we had the idea to create a new, ongoing, and in the spirit of open access, online database that each and every one of you could access, and where people could also get in touch with us in case our data is wrong, and that should grow over time. So let me just show you what the database is about. I know this is hard to read, but I just sort of added a screenshot from the homepage. So as I said, our idea is to bring in people who are interested on the topic, who do research on liberal arts, who need to get an overview, and we thought we could help these people by providing a database of liberal arts programs. So what we did is we built up an inventory that now includes 84 entries, so we are counting at the moment 84 liberal arts programs in Europe. It's going to be 89 next year because we know of a few that are going to start in the UK. There are at least 3 that we know of. And we listed these programs and started off by collecting their basic institutional data. So on the very left side, you have the name of the program, obviously the location, so where the country and the city where it's in. We have the year where it's established, when it was established, and we always took the year when a program of study would have the first cohort, because sometimes the programs were set up in 2012, but only actually started with students in 2013 because they needed to figure out things in between. Obviously, we listed the website. We have a type code that I'm going to go into in a bit. The language of instruction, the main language that is used in all the required courses, many of them playing the international string, obviously in English, but there are quite a few also in the national language in the corresponding countries. We have the ownership status, which is private or public, hosting or affiliated institutions, sometimes the mother institutions, so to say, and then commons, a comment section where we sometimes added points when we found something out that the college was renamed, or the history, there's important data on the history, we would put it down in the comment section, and there are actually more columns we're working on right now that are not published yet. For example, we're interested in seeing who was sort of the first leader or the founder of a program, who stands behind it, which is also an important question for Daniel, but also how small or big are the programs, how many students are there, what are the student fees, and so on and so forth. So this database might widen. And as I said before, it was basically started in a 2-step process. First of all, we sat down and reviewed and expanded a provisional database that was based on the lists I've mentioned before, sort of a very meticulous desk research. And then in a second round, we actually got in touch with each of these 84 institutions to confirm our findings, to make sure whether we got the information right, and so on and so forth. We basically included institutions on the basis of self-description. So as soon as a program would say, we are a liberal arts institution, or as soon, especially when the institution we would say, we are offering a degree in liberal arts, we are offering a BA in liberal arts, they would be added to our database, and then we got in touch with them and see if we got their data right. So to go beyond the basic data, and the column I haven't mentioned so far, we came up with a sort of provisional, but it's still in place. It's a small typology of organizational forms of liberal arts programs, and this is now where it's hopefully getting a bit more concrete for you, but where you can also see the diversity of programs, because we wanted to shed some light on the different existing liberal arts programs that we thought we were aware of, that there are different types. Right now our typology consists of 5 categories. A few more again are yet to come but not published yet, but I'm going to stick to those that we have published yet. We have the private independent liberal arts institutions, we call them 1As, the private American institutions, public university colleges, public liberal arts programs, and finally liberal arts-inspired curricular innovations. Now I'm going to talk about 1A and 1B and 3A only very briefly, and first go into detail a bit more with those two highlighted ones there, 2A and 2B, and also do a small showcase if time allows. So I'm going to start off with the public university colleges. So public university colleges are offering BAs or BScs in liberal arts, and you have to imagine them as financially and functionally autonomous units, so-called colleges, with a public university accrediting the program. So this is a very prominent setting in the Netherlands, where you find most university colleges, short UC, and you get, for example, the University College Utrecht, the UCU, and this is accredited then by the University of Utrecht, or affiliated with the corresponding university. Sometimes it's more complicated, but you can basically go through and find out that the Amsterdam University Colleges has something to do with the universities of Amsterdam and the University College Leiden and so on and so forth. There are similar attempts abroad. You could name the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Sciences at St. Petersburg State University, that's known as Smolny College, or the Collegium Artis Liberalis, if I pronounce it correctly, at the University of Warsaw. So you find the setting outside of the Netherlands, but in the Netherlands it's the most prominent setting. And I'm going to quickly showcase your institution because we thought I thought I picked some that we can relate to, or where Teun could essentially say more to in our discussion. So the University College Maastricht is one of these small-scale, in a residential setting based institutions. That means they have their own buildings where they do all the teaching. They have their own staff, their own teaching staff, which is a very important feature. And they are in this university college where all the liberal arts stuff is happening. In Maastricht, it's the case that people can live on campus, but they don't have to live on campus. There are actually university colleges where the students have to live on campus for those 3 years. So it's really this idea of getting a close-knit community, as I said, at a functionally autonomous building outside of a big campus, where all the liberal arts stuff is happening, not only the teaching, but the living, the co-curricular activities, enough space for students to engage and really to foster this community. UCM is known for also employing a special kind of pedagogy. Many places strive to offer like a very student-centered pedagogy. UCM is especially committed to PBL, so problem-based learning, and just a small thing so you can get an idea about the curriculum. Students that apply or that start their studies, their liberal arts studies at UCL, they have a core curriculum that all of the students need to take throughout their 3 years that they are there at the UCM. Those are 4 courses, if I'm not mistaken. And then, which makes probably most part of the studies, is an individual concentration. This can be in the social sciences, the humanities, or the sciences, and then there's an option to do an even more individualized concentration, but big part of the curriculum is chosen and designed by the student themselves, and they also have skills training sessions. They have some projects, modules where they do research projects or whatever, and then the capstone thesis, which sort of is the dissertation in the end, and these are sort of the main blocks or units of the curriculum. We can go deeper into that in the discussion, but I'm just going to run through it for now because I want to show you a very different setting, which is the public liberal arts programs at universities. And those are programs that are offered at an established public university. So this could be, for example, Aarhus University, where liberal arts is just one program of study among others. So you enter the university campus, such as Aarhus, and you just chose liberal arts as well as you could choose educational sciences or whatever. And what's interesting here is that students often also get offered a sort of a core curriculum by the people teaching the liberal arts program, but then essentially the students go out, they spread out all over the university, and they can sort of develop their own curriculum and say, well, I have a question on migration and whatnot, and to answer this question or to focus on my studies, I need some modules from politics, so I go to the faculty that offers that and dig into political sciences, but I also need economy, and I might also need cultural studies to understand some of the problems related to my topic. So the students really spread out. This is happening in most of the UK programs. It's really interesting. It's sort of where the first module is almost exclusively found in the Netherlands. This is one that is run by all the English universities offering liberal arts, but also outside. And one example I brought here is the Studium Individuale, which is sort of a strange name, but it is a liberal arts degree at Leuphana University, just 30 minutes south of Hamburg in Germany. I chose this because I used to work there for 2 years and sort of know how the program is set up. So by German standards, Leuphana University is a mid-sized university of 9,000 students and only 4 faculties, very broad faculties, economics, education, sustainability, and cultural studies. And the idea there in the liberal arts program is to get students to focus on what they call contemporary questions or problems. So to just shoot some out, it's things like digitalization, waste, terrorism, security. Those are the problems that students deal with. And they have core modules, but as I said before, for probably 70% of their studies, it's a pretty accurate number actually, for 70% of their studies, they go out into the university. Obviously, there's a lot of advising going on that the students don't get lost, but the main difference to the university college here is that it's obviously much harder to establish a close-knit community. Students might feel much more alone. Also, size is a very big thing here, because those university colleges almost all accept a number of 200 students each year. So they have, depending on how fast the students are, they have between 600 and 800 students probably at a university college studying constantly, whereas in these programs, to stay with Lüneburg, they accept only 36 students each year. So it's like roughly 100 students doing this degree. It's at Lüneburg, and that's obviously a much smaller number. Now I'm skipping sort of through the other 3 types that we got here, because the first 2 ones are, for our discussion, I think the most interesting ones. There are also private independent liberal arts institutions. They might function similar to the 2 A's that I've presented, but they are private in the sense that they are not accredited by some sort of public university, but they do award liberal arts degrees as well. Those are only very few, for example, Bard College in Berlin, or BISLA, that is the Bratislava International School of Liberal Arts. We have these private American institutions, so the ones obviously you see are the private ones, the 2s are the public ones. 1B's, the private American institutions, they operate pretty much to American ideals and organizational models. They are located in major cities here in Europe, and they are very often sort of accredited by an American institution. It's really a branch, and you can also already see that by the name. You have the Webster University, Vienna, the University of Indianapolis, Athens, the American University in Bulgaria, the Franklin University in Switzerland. Those are sort of the branches out there, but they are also doing the liberal arts, so we took them into account. And then probably the category that can get where things can go most crazy is the institution that promote curricular innovation. We included institutions that are sort of inspired by liberal arts style elements. And we are not 100% clear here, but we are meaning things like offering a core curriculum and elective principles, focus on academic skills, And there are some universities that are very outspoken about it, that sort of don't offer a liberal arts degree, but they would say in their mission statement, oh, we are a liberal arts institution running on ideas that come directly from this liberal arts tradition. Now, to finish off, I'm just going to show you the sort of the spread and the distribution of the types, and then there's going to be more content on what liberal arts actually is by Teun. So these are the 1As. You see very few private independent institutions. These are the 1Bs. Those are the American ones. Now the 2As, as I promised, mostly in the Netherlands. The 2Bs, obviously mostly in the UK. And the 3As are the curriculum innovation institutions that are sort of spread everywhere. You can access this all online on the link that's mentioned there, so I'm not going to go into that any further. And just to give you a quick outlook, this is the distribution on the 84 institutions, how many are in each type. So obviously those models are more ideal types than very logical dissections. There is permeability of some categories, but the diversity, I think, might be seen as a strength because it allows for adaptation to national contexts, which is sometimes needed. The pluralism of the liberal arts directs our attention more towards the meaning associated with the idea, and the pure fact of self-description of liberal arts is of course interesting, but it does not tell us what's really behind it, what really sort of how it's connected to our question here, what the future of higher education might look like. But we think it might have a very timely potential, the whole liberal arts idea, and this is where I give the floor to Teun.
Thank you, Tim.